Good morning, everybody, and welcome to your Rangers Review morning briefing for Thursday, the 16th of January. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined this morning by Joshua Barry. How's it going, Joshua?
It is going good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, all good, thank you. Always better when we can wax lyrical, I guess, about a Rangers win. Although it should have been much more comfortable, I think, last night than what it had to be. 3-0 in the end against Aberdeen. I think they were well-deserved winners in the end. 2 goals in stoppage time to, make it more substantial a victory than what it was looking like for large spells of the game. Hamza Igeman strike in the first half, a man in form. We'll talk about him shortly. And then 2 injury time goals from Leon Balogun on his return from injury, and Cyril Dessers getting off the mark as well. He's not scored for a fair few weeks, Cyril Dessers. He's seen game time limited, but took his goal well last night. You were there, Joshua, for us. What did you make of it?
Do you know what? I was actually quite surprised at the way Aberdeen played, because I think everyone watching this will know it's no great secret of the games that Rangers tend to struggle in, and Aberdeen's played quite high line. They played out from the back. That's obviously where the first goal came from. And I thought it was they tried to go toe to toe with Rangers, and it was a really dominant display. One of Rangers' better domestic dominant displays. I don't think it tells you much about the games that they aren't winning. For example, games away from home, because that just doesn't seem to translate at the moment. But in isolation, a good night for Clement. I think he needed that after the last couple of weeks. Nsiala, we'll come on to talk about, but I thought he did really well. Another good performance for Yanis Hadji. Hamza Igeman has, I think, 9 league goals and 10 league starts since he kind of broke into the team. And it's kind of quickly becoming normal that he scores at this rate. But if he does that over a period of an entire season, he's close to probably about 30 league goals, which isn't normal on Rangers terms in the last few seasons. And I actually thought Chefty was really good too. One of his better performances, I thought, on a Rangers shirt. And it's easy to forget, Derek, that he, like Nsiala, is 20 years old. He's kind of been thrust into it quite early. So I thought they were good. The XG was, I've not got the stats bomb numbers yet, but I think they were over 3 from the immediate kind of FOT mob reaction. And yeah, the type of game that suits Rangers, and I think that showed. They should have put it away earlier. Václav Černý, I thought looked absolutely knackered in that second half, but Clement was able to use his bench, and his bench were able to kind of finish off the job.
Yep. Right, let's dive right into it. Lots of interesting takeaways and points. We'll discuss the back line to begin with. I spoke with Chris after the game last night about Clinton Nsiala. He was a candidate for man of the match last night for me. Yeah. He's growing in that role. Like you say, only he's how old? 20 years of age. Is that how old he is? So, I mean, he's only now played 3 full-time senior matches in the game. There was a bit of trepidation when he was thrust in at Dens Park. It certainly surprised a few that he was given the start. Many thought that Leon King would have got the nods, but Clement trusted Clinton to come in. He looked raw at Dens Park, but I thought he acquitted himself reasonably well, considering it was his first ever game. And then 2 other decent games, albeit he wasn't necessarily tested a great deal against St Johnstone. And last night, I thought that was his best game. It's not much of a sample size, of course, but it looks like he's relishing playing at the back for Rangers at the moment, and really enjoyed watching him. This is what the manager had to say about him in his post-match press conference.
And he will make mistakes along the way, but indeed, he made really big steps forward. All credit to him, because he's very focused, he's hungry to learn, but all credits also to the staff and his experienced teammates. So in all these trainings the last couple of months, I always put him against an experienced one, next to an experienced one who coached him really well. So those guys get also credit for the evolution that Clinton is making, and that's the plan that the club had before the season, with the financial situation, to find these kind of talents. So the club did a really good way to do it, and the staff did a really good way to work in a good way with it.
So there you go. Words from Philip Clement on Clinton Nsiala. Neil, with it, quite rightly says, let's not get carried away with Nsiala. We've seen little defending from him yet. I've seen someone mentioning in the comments last night, comparing him to Calvin Bassey, Joshua. It was always going to happen, I'd imagine. But the manager's comments there on Nsiala, and there was a point that also came in on this from Matthew Ross. He says, I'd be happy to play Nsiala for the rest of the season. The league has gone, I'm willing to accept mistakes from a developing player. What do you make of that?
Well, I think Neil's point is right. It's 3 games. I thought he was really good last night. I thought he was Rangers' most comfortable centre-back, and especially on the ball, because I thought Robin Propper didn't have a great game on the ball. I thought he slowed it down too much, especially at the start of the second half. And part of the reason I think that the game became a little bit, the tempo kind of slowed for Rangers up until maybe 50 to 70 to 80 minutes or something like that. And a lot of that I thought had to do with the fact that they weren't playing the ball into Rask, and Propper was going over the top too often. And you could see a couple of times Clement getting frustrated at that. So I thought Nsiala's passes were excellent, and that's not an easy thing to do if you're a centre-back. I agree it's only 3 games in, and you shouldn't get... I don't think you should give him that left centre-back spot. But what I do think it changes slightly, Derek, is I think it was Stephen's point, apologies if that's wrong, but you look at players like Bailey Rice and Clinton Nsiala, and when Patrick Stewart's talking about not making panic buys, making the right short-term signings, especially given the position Rangers are in the league, they need to not block pathways. And I think someone like Nsiala maybe wasn't expected to play these 3 games so quickly. Rangers obviously didn't expect to have this kind of centre-back crisis. So you're maybe not looking at it thinking he's definitely your out-and-out first-choice centre-back, but equally, I think for young players, it's about taking opportunities. You can't say that he didn't take his last night, and how is his development best served now? I don't think it's going back to the B team and playing semi-regular, semi-competitive games now and again. It's probably, like Bailey Rice has been, a full-time member of that first-team squad. Clinton Nsiala's largely training with the first-team squad anyway, but making that step up on a more permanent basis. So is Rangers centre-back issue completely solved? No. But I think you saw someone last night who has the raw attributes, especially in a high possession team, because of his skills on the ball to develop into a good player for Rangers relatively quick. Obviously had a couple of moments he got turned by Nisbet on one occasion. I think he might have drawn a yellow card for that. He was also covering, I think, for Propper a little bit on that occasion. Propper obviously was forced off through injury yesterday as well. But we reported earlier in the week that Rangers weren't pursuing a deal for Ekdal, the 26-year-old centre-back on loan from Burnley. And that's what they need to get right. And signing these young players, you need to create a pathway for them. We spoke about it earlier. If Rangers had signed up an experienced number 6 this summer, where would Nico Raskin be? Where would that value be? Where would the value of the squad be? So I think there's all these different knock-on effects. And I agree with both those comments. It's not time to get carried away and say he's going to be this, that, or the next thing. But it is fair to say, for a player who only made it into the Rangers squad for the first time at the beginning of this month, that I think his place on the bench against Hibs was his first time in the squad all season. The manager, Philippe Clement, turned to Leon King as opposed to Clinton Nsiala to come off the bench. Leon King kind of lost that header, didn't he, for the equalising goal. Clement went with Nsiala as of then. But that kind of shows you how far away he was from the first team, and now very quickly he's putting that performance against Aberdeen last night.
But as an example, I mean, we often say that Rangers pretty reluctant on just throwing young boys in and seeing how they get on, but it's a sink or swim situation, isn't it? And Nsiala certainly taking his opportunity. So I would like to see more young lads getting a chance. I think some will do well. I certainly would like to see them getting a chance this coming Sunday. There's no reason why Bailey Rice, Zach Lovelace, maybe one or two others won't get some serious minutes on Sunday against Fraserburgh. But Clinton Nsiala is certainly taking his opportunity. That cross for Balogun's goal was superb. It reminded me of Amoruso back in the Helicopter Sunday game against Dunfermline. Actually, I have never seen a centre-back crossing for another Rangers centre-half to score in a game. Big shout-out. I'd have to check this, but Cameron Robertson on Twitter replied to me last night, or this morning, sorry, said, Beguera to Kyle Bartley, St Mirren away 2010-11 season. Can someone
that is impressive recall, isn't it? That is
If that happened, I can't recall it off the top of my mind, but if that is true, folks, do let us know in the comments. I'll need to go and give it a bit of research after this video. But yeah, loved that last night, and his range of passing is really impressive. But yeah, he's had a good start to his.
What do you think there? Would you change your opinion on how many centre backs Rangers need now because you're looking at Nsiala as someone who wasn't maybe considered a first team fifth or fourth choice, whereas now, as I say, I don't think can you put him to play games back in the B team regularly? Does that hurt his development from this point?
No, he'd be part of the first team for me now. There's no point sending him back. I would still like at least one, ideally two. Well, Robin Proper came off, of course, last night. Need to find out the extent of that, but he's someone that is hobbled off quite a few times now, Robin Proper. It remains to be seen if he'll be at Rangers long term. Leon Balogun, as we touched on, good to see him back, but he's someone that has shown that he can't be relied upon regularly to play matches. We know about John Souttar. Fingers crossed he'll be back in the not too distant future. But yeah, ideally, I would like to see probably two. Is that realistic? I'm not entirely sure it is. But yeah, in terms of, you mentioned that Ekdal earlier on in the week, Josh, it's not, just trying to think, there's not been anyone else concrete links with regards to centre half, but we do know the club are looking at boosting the personnel in that area.
Yeah, they are, and the initial plan, I think, was to do something short term after John Souttar picked up that injury, which was against Spurs on December, some point before Christmas, maybe 11th, 15th. That obviously added to the Casemiro injury. And the Casemiro injury, I think, is one that was really harmful to Rangers' season, because I think by this point, had he been fully fit, it would have been him and John Souttar as the first choice centre backs. I think Casemiro didn't see much of him, but what we saw was impressive, and he made one or two errors here or there. But that was definitely a blow in the context of the season. Since then, obviously, Leon Balogun picked up that injury, Dujon Sterling too. But I guess you're always trying to react as well as a football club. What is as we're discussing with Nsiala, does that change things slightly? Do they still need a centre back in? Yes, I'd argue that they still need probably to invest in that area in the summertime as well. But you also now have that situation of you want to be able to give Nsiala some game time because he's shown he can probably handle it. Listen, he might play 2 more games, Derek. I know he can't play against Man United, but he might go to Dundee United away and play. Maybe he won't. Maybe it'll be Balogun and Proper. Who knows? We might play a game like that and struggle a little bit more as he did in Dundee. Equally, I think when you can see a player has raw attributes, probably the only way they improve is by playing matches. And as you say, I don't think Rangers have been in a habit of handing those out necessarily to young players in recent seasons.
Yeah. I like this. Multiple Man 78 says, ask Joshua who dislikes long-range shooting if he liked it. Egerman's Thunder Blaster. That was it in the first half, I think it was. Doing punched it, tipped the ball away. What do you make of that?
I did like it, but to the derogatory comment, but it was the right time, wasn't it? I mean, tell you who should not take long shots for Rangers is Mohamed Diamande, because he takes them from the worst moments from the worst time. There's a big difference in shooting from that type of range when it's quick and the goalkeeper's maybe unsighted, or you've got a better shooter in Egerman, who just, I said at halftime I thought he was the best player on the pitch, and got a lot of people coming back saying it was Hadji, and it's maybe fair. I thought Chefty was right up there for me too. You know, I like him as a player.
Yeah.
But Egerman, like, it shouldn't be forgotten that 2 months ago he wasn't even. What's the date? January 15th. I think it was
almost like an enigma, like a myth.
Yeah, you saw little flashes of him. Dundee United away, he scored that goal in the Europa League against Steaua Bucharest. But that aside, really haven't seen much from him. Now it's kind of just expected that he scores every single game at the moment, and I think you can see him improving as a player so much. So. Yeah, I did like that shot, but few and far between, please. Because still, Rangers, you can see in the final third, I still think they're a team who lacks that, and we've spoken about this tons, but I still think they lack
composure,
whatever word you want, composure, clarity, and I don't think that. I just think that they're a team who want to go forward and they want to attack quickly. And games like last night, where the tempo is set by the game, Aberdeen are playing a high line, they're trying to play it from the back. Space is created just as a product of the game. When a team comes to sit in, I think you need to be more refined in like when you shoot, because if you shoot all the time from range, you're just relieving pressure. How do you work opportunities? So I don't think last night answered a lot of questions about. It wasn't anything new per se. It was a really good performance. Don't get me wrong. We know Rangers can be good in these games. It's when they, I think, have to set the tempo with the ball that there's more question marks.
Yeah, it was a bit erratic last night, and at the final third, Rangers were very wasteful in front of goal. Just on guys taking long-range efforts, I agree with Denzel as well. So same goes for Ridvan.
Yes, agreed.
And
he went in a great run. He went in a great run last night, didn't he? Where he went past two.
Yes.
And part of this is probably because Rangers don't have a right footer at all on the right. He did this in the Celtic games as well, and I just think it's that final bit of you see the best teams do it when they get into those positions. They make one more pass as opposed to shooting from unrealistic positions, because one of those shots will go in eventually, but it's how many shots don't. As a consequence.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, that game for me should have been put to bed by half-time, and then you're just kicking back and enjoying the second half, and then you're looking at the likes of the young boys getting on and getting minutes. But Rangers need to start putting these teams to the sword early on. Just when you mentioned Cashin Weirjo, Scott with the point says, what's the situation with Nana Guy's indication that he's going to miss the rest of the season? Is he still with us as far as I'm aware? He's back at Feyenoord going through his rehab, isn't he? And I would be surprised if we've seen him in a Rangers jersey again this season. The Rangers did have an option to buy on him. Again, he falls into the bracket of injury-prone players. I would be pretty reluctant to pay cash for him at this point in time.
Yeah, and it's a shame, because I thought before the injury he looked really good, and if he didn't have that injury, I think there would have been a clamour to exercise that option to buy. There was a report that came out earlier this week, I think, from Holland, that there's a possibility he'd be recalled. That's tied up in the situation of how many players a team can loan out. I think it's 5 or 6 within their first team squad. A few complications there, but he has been back doing his rehab in the Netherlands, and he's a player I'd have liked to see more of. I think I'd have liked to see a back four this season at some point of Sterling and Casemiro and Suter and Shefty probably as a back four, but as situation has it, Rangers have rarely had that opportunity to play their kind of ideal starting 11 at the moment. A lot of injuries in the defence earlier this season, a lot of injuries in attack, wasn't it?
Yeah, talking about injuries, Andrew with the point says the Cortes situation is very alarming if he's injured again. Now, he wasn't in the matchday squad last night. Clement said post-match, Rabbi Matondo wasn't in that squad either. Amid speculation, he could be departing. He said leaving out Rabbi was a sporting choice. The two young lads who were on the bench, he was alluding to Lovelace and Rice, are performing for the moment better. Oscar would have been on the bench, but he had a small problem yesterday evening. Not in training. We need to assess that in the next couple of days. So he had a small problem. Folk and supporters are getting a little bit irate about this, Joshua, it's fair to say, because Rangers do have an obligation to buy on Oscar Cortes at the end of the season, and we're not just talking peanuts here. There is concern about this boy.
Yeah, obviously need to ascertain exactly what that is, because a small issue is very vague, and I don't know at this moment in time what that is, but we'll try to ascertain exactly what that is, and imagine that Philippe Clement will speak about it again tomorrow. Is tomorrow Friday? Yeah, yes. Tomorrow with Rangers in the Scottish Cup action on Sunday. There's no doubt. I think when you look at the recruitment so far, someone like Nsiala and Clement, there's a lot of positives. Shefty, who we've not really spoke about, but I thought that was one of his best games last night. You still need, I think, to see more return for where Rangers have spent money. Diomande still, I think everyone can see he's a really good player. We spoke about it before. Is he dominating matches enough in the Scottish Premiership? Bayrami's not played that consistently at number 10, but equally he's not really grabbed his opportunity in the last couple of weeks. I think it's fair to say. And obviously Cortes, the frustration being that you saw he was I think a really bright player when he came into the club, but he's had all these issues. And for someone who didn't have any injury issues come into the club at all, that's a slightly freak situation. But given the context of Rangers and injuries in the past few years, obviously it's kind of all bracketed together. So yeah, we'll ascertain exactly what the issue is there. A small issue, and the fact that he had trained on Tuesday, the day before the game, is slightly more positive, maybe. But we'll have to see exactly. Rabbi Matondo, I think, is a different decision. The fact that Clement said it was a sporting choice, I think, read between the lines there as to what that means. He's not played much this season. There was a lot of interest, or a fair amount of interest in him on a loan deal in the summer.
Yes.
I think Rangers were able to get a good proportion of those wages covered, and they were able to then go and reinvest that in the squad somehow, somewhere else, to get a little bit more cover out wide, especially given the emergence of Yanis Hadji in that left-sided position. I don't think they would be too difficult to deal with.
Yeah, there are reports that Rabbi could be on his ways. We've got a piece coming out from Chris, I think, later on today on the latest on that one. But yeah, I expect him to move on, which is, I think, for the benefit of both club and player. He's simply not contributing. And over his time at Rangers, looking at it, if he's to move on, Joshua, probably money not well spent. We've seen it in flashes, his ability at times, just simply not consistent enough.
Nah, Rangers just haven't had wingers for so long consistently, have they? Even last night, I know Cherney kind of is, but he always wants to move inside. I was surprised he lasted.
He gets the rest Sunday, surely, yeah?
Oh yeah, he has to. I mean, there was a couple of moments last night, and I'm not blaming him at all, because he's played so much football. A couple of occasions in the second half where he just didn't track his fullback, and he's a hard-working player.
Yeah,
but he just looked, and as soon as the final whistle went, he was kind of down on his knees, catching his breath. So, I think there is a bit of sometimes a mismatch in that we've spoken about this before with Clement's team, and that he makes radical changes for a game like Motherwell, and St Mirren and Motherwell between Christmas and New Year were really costly for Rangers. But then it's the same starting 11 week on, week in a row. Not many substitutions made. So I think there's sometimes a bit of a disconnect from the outside looking in, obviously not having access to the medical information he does. Options remain pretty limited in those wide areas, it should be said, not least because you didn't have Matondo or Cortes on the bench last night.
Yeah. Someone asked previously about what the situation is with Robin Proper and Danilo, who came off injured last night. Clement said afterwards, "I cannot say anything about that. I hear that people are worried about Danny, about his old injury. It's nothing to do with that, not even around that. But we'll see in the next couple of days. I cannot say anything about it. Maybe it's something that's not too bad. Maybe it's for a longer term. We'll see in the next couple of days." So one can only hope that it is more precautionary in short term, Joshua, because we've talked about injury-prone players. Danilo is another one. He contributes when he's on the park. It's just getting him on the park and contributing, really, that has been a problem.
Do you know he started 6 with Rangers' last 10 league games, and that's his most consistent run of form in the team since summer 2023. And that's a long time. Again, it's not his fault. He had that really bad face injury. I think he fractured the cheekbone early on against St Johnstone. He then did his knee. He then had a little bit of a flare-up. He's had other issues too. Again, it's where Rangers have spent money. If you look at the money committed to that signing, they've just not got enough return. Danilo's been slightly different because I think there's rarely been games where he's not contributed something. Even last night, linked with Igamanuel, should have probably scored when he went through one-on-one, but Rangers look a better team when they have more of the ball, when Danilo and Igaman are playing together. But I'm sure Clement will be crossing his fingers. It's nothing serious. He was able to play on, and Bayrami was on the bench, so it kind of was a substitution that made sense. Clement says it's not attached to previous issues. I think at the weekend, though, you'll probably see Cyril Dessers, who interest continues to kind of rumble on in the background for. I think you'll see him up top, and a lot of changes throughout the team, because the second half it looked like a Rangers starting 11 that needed a bit of a rest.
Yeah, I know he was clutching his shoulder when he came off, so I'd imagine it may be something to do with that. On another player that's out injured, Ross with the point says, any word on when Butland's expected back, guys? The manager wouldn't be drawn on timescales when he spoke prior to the game last night, but I'd imagine it won't be too far away, you'd like to think. That being said, Liam Kelly, I thought, acquitted himself well last night. Joshua, good handling, commanding when he had to be. Spoke well as well ahead of the game last night in his press conference. I enjoy listening to Liam Kelly. Is it just a simple cut and dry when Butland returns, Liam Kelly sits back on the bench?
Yeah, because Butland's on too much money to sit on the bench. It was a cut. Clement said, I believe, before the Celtic game that Butland could have made the Dundee game. I could be wrong with that. It might have been the game after. Obviously, a bit of care being given to the situation and the fact that he had to go into hospital for it. But he's, as was reported at the time, he is fine. Would imagine, though, as you say, that Rangers are in a situation at the moment where they've not had to rush Butland back because Kelly's, I think, acquitted himself fine. There's been a few issues, I think, from corners, although last night Rangers were fine. Kelly gathered a lot of them, obviously against Hibs and St Johnstone as well. Rangers conceded, and I don't think that is an isolation of the goalkeeping situation. I think Jack Butland would have his eyes firmly on the Manchester United game and want to play. Obviously, as a Manchester United fan growing up, spent a bit of time at the club a couple of years ago, so I think he would like to make that game. But Kelly in the interim will continue to play there and be fine, I'm sure.
Yep. Ahead of Sunday, I mean, we'll look at it more in detail tomorrow, I'd imagine, about who it could start. But can you foresee wholesale changes for the game, do you reckon? Opportunities given to a number of players that haven't really been featuring of late, of course, with one eye on Manchester United on the following Thursday. Of course, Yanis Hadji not in the European squad. Expecting him to start, I would imagine. Danilo, it remains to be seen. I doubt if he hobbled off given his injury situation. I know he's not available for Man United, but I'd be surprised if he featured on Sunday. Expecting quite a lot of changes, I imagine. Just off the top of my head, Josh, I'm just looking at it just now. I'd still be keeping Liam Kelly in goal. Tavernier, of course, came back as an opportunity for him to get more minutes. I'd imagine he'll be a shoe-in to start the game. Nsiala keeps his place for me. Who else? Balogun maybe comes in, starts the game. Ridvan at left back, perhaps get Jefty a rest. Midfield, I'm looking. Yeah, Bailey
Rice has to play. Yeah, Bailey Rice has to play. Lovelace has to play.
Yeah.
Who else?
Probably comes in.
Yeah, that team looked tired last night. And Jefty looked very fresh. I keep going back to Jefty, but it's because we've not spoken about him. But I just think
the Jefty Rangers Supporters Club.
I'm a founding member.
He was good.
And he deserved an assist. I just think it's been lost a little bit that he's still 20 years old and he's had to come into if you're 20 and you're coming to play for Rangers at this moment in time, it's not the most stable environment. He's had a few bad games. Last night, I thought he was just really good, proactive, so quick. His final ball was good last night, and that's something that has been levelled against him at points. So yeah, just a mention. But I agree with Dave. I'd give him a rest. You've got to, after Man United, you've got Dundee United away. I think the games are kind of all rolling. That's such a big game, I think. Yeah, because if you lose that, then the league season, which is already done in terms of a title race, but it would just be such a morale blow for people. And I think Patrick Stewart needs Clement to get a good result in that away game. Rangers away record is as well documented, very, very poor. You'd I think back them a little bit more maybe at this moment in time to get a result at Old Trafford than you would at Tannadice. But we'll wait and see. But that's a big game at the end of the week before the end of the January transfer window.
Yep, a few points to come in before we wrap things up. Ian Dillon with a point says, what about Hagi's sweet passes last night? Yeah, it was superb. He was well on top of his game last night. Yanis Hagi, really enjoyed watching them. And he also had, Derek, I used to drink the Farmer's Arms in Padgate. Is it still there? It is still there, Ian. It's not a pub I frequent, I've got to say. There is a great little pizza takeaway store just across the road from it, which I do frequent after football as a little treat, but it's still there, buddy. So yeah, absolutely lovely part of the world. And ahead of that game on Sunday, Disco 13 gets in touch. You may be aware of this, folks. Anyone heard about the minute's applause on the 40th minute at the Fraserburgh game? Yep. This is for sad news. Brian Geddes, Rangers fan, who sadly passed away. He was 40 years of age. So Dave McCallum, Dave McCallum got in touch with me and the Rangers Review, looking to see how he can get a minute's applause on the 40th minute of that game. So if you weren't aware, if you are heading along to the game on Sunday, folks, if you can take part in that, that would be much appreciated. And yeah, I'm sure Brian will be looking down on that game. But the Rangers fans always do commemorating fans best, really, and I'm sure they will do likewise this coming Sunday. Right, we'll wrap up there. Big thank you to you all for tuning in to the show as ever. It is very much appreciated. Big thank you to Joshua for joining us as well. As I touched on earlier, it is press conference day tomorrow, where we'll hear from Philip Clement and whatever player is put up for the press. As we touched on, Chris has got a transfer piece coming out on the website a little later on, so keep your eyes peeled for that. And yeah, if we don't speak to you later on today, enjoy your Thursday, and we'll speak to you later. Bye for now.